And I was like, I don't know. We're all being manipulated. Like, we're all fucked. This is all, like, who knows what the truth is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Matt, what did you dig up?
Well, so carrying on with what we were just talking about, I kind of was interested in, where did we get this idea of, like, misinformation, disinformation, of just fucking with people as a way of, it's almost like a weapon of war, almost. Because I was reading a recent article where it was talking about how, I think it was Russia, China, and Iran were all getting together and spreading misinformation in the United States, basically just setting up the ball and just letting us run with it.
Yeah,
of just like,
sounds very
here's
good.
a bunch of misinformation, and there's a lot of dum-dums out there who will just run with this, and and it's just a mess right now. And I say dum-dums, but I at the same time, I'm like, like we just said, how do you know what to trust and what not to?
Right. I might be the dum-dum.
Yeah, like maybe I'm the dum-dum. I'm not.
I'm definitely not the dum-dum.
Yeah, definitely not. I was just trying to be modest and sound cool, but really I'm fucking smart.
Right.
So, all right.
Yeah. So I kind of was like really interested into sort of like really like the earliest possible situations where disinformation was going on. Apparently it's been going on forever. So anyway, I was trying to look into as far back as I could see what was the earliest, event that happened that was recorded in history. And it seems like, as long as man has been able to work out what lying is, what telling non-truths is. So this story happened in the 1400s, and it's a story of Simon of Trent. Have you ever heard of this whole deal?
No.
Simon of Trent. So it happened in Italy back in the 1475 era. And so it was a Franciscan preacher by the name of Bernardine of Felter.
Bernie.
I'm not going to try. I'll just call him Bernie. How about that?
Yeah, Bernie.
So,
He's a Bernie bro.
Yeah. So this guy had some issues with the Jewish community. He was a bit of a dick. I'm not going to lie to you. He was a bit of a jerk. And so he started delivering a bunch of sermons, basically just vilifying this whole Jewish community that started, setting up businesses in Trent in Italy back in the day. And it was these Jewish families that came and set up. Some were doctors, some were money lenders. There were all sorts of different things. But there was three main houses that set up shop there. Mm-hmm. So old Bernie, fucking Bernie, came in and Big B, and he went so far as to like set up businesses that were in direct competition with these Jewish families. So he was setting up like other banks and medical practices and stuff just to fuck with these Jewish families.
Starbucks,
So
right on the corner of another Starbucks. Right.
Yeah. Here's a sort of an excerpt from a book that someone was kind of writing about him. His preaching was mainly responsible for what was called blood libel. Have you ever heard of that term before?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'll get into that in a little bit. Blood libel in Trent, 1475, and in the following year, he made similar attempt at Reggio, and then in Bassano, in a couple of other different places where he was instigated the expulsion of Jews from the areas. Like everywhere he went, he just really, really disliked Jewish people, and it was a huge problem for this guy. But I was reading this Politico article when I was like trying to find the first, evidence of like fake news and disinformation kind of thing. And it came across the story of Simon of Trent. And so it was this 2.5-year-old child named Simon, or the Italian version was like Simonio or something like that. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. I'll just move on. So he went missing all of a sudden during this period. And the preacher Bernie Bernardo del Feltre. Yeah, that was pretty good. I think that'll work.
Yeah, it sounded good to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave a series of sermons after this kid went missing, claiming that the Jewish community had murdered the child and drained its blood and drunk it to celebrate Passover.
Oh.
Right? So this is the idea of blood libel. So blood libel is this like horrible anti-Semitic rumor, basically, which accuses Jews of murdering, mainly Christian children in order to use their blood as part of like their religious rituals.
Damn.
And historically, these claims, alongside those of like well poisoning and desecration of spiritual places, been a major theme of the persecution of Jews throughout Europe back in like these 1400s and onwards, basically. Well, I mean, they've had huge problems throughout history, obviously, but this is just like the continuation of just this horrible anti-Semitism that was happening throughout Europe. So, actually, it was interesting because Jewish law was like totally against murder and sacrifice and the consumption of blood and anything along those lines. Like they have, pretty direct stipulations that,
Right.
That's not a thing in their religion. Like,
Right, of course.
blood rituals and stuff. It was just like this horrible rumor that was started. Mm-hmm. So, I found this article. It was written by an American historian called Ronnie Hizia. Man, all these names. Anyway, old Ronnie, he started this. He sort of dug back into the history books and started piecing together these bits and pieces of like the trials and all sorts of crazy stuff. And here's basically what he put together. So, Simon, aged 2.5, went missing at about 5 p.m. on the evening of Thursday, March 23rd, 1475. So the following day, Simon's father, the little boy's father, approached the Prince Bishop, Bernie, also known as the Podesta. Interesting.
Ooh.
Wow.
Which is a name
That's
given
weird.
to the holder of the highest civil office. Like, there's nothing actually that interesting about it. It's just a it's just
It's
a
a
name.
coincidence and another name.
Just
Okay,
a
go ahead.
coincidence. Yeah.
You said Podesta, I thought Pizzagate. Let's go on.
Yeah, that's
Well,
it's just
yeah.
interesting that like this is kind of connecting
Right. So
in a weird, strange way. Okay, go ahead.
So he got a hold of this Podesta guy, which is the the highest civil officer in the state there, and he had this guy's men spread the description of Simon throughout the city. So over the following couple of days, searches were carried out by Simon's family and neighbors and people of the town, and the servants of the Podesta, and also the Jewish community who had been alerted to a rumor that they had taken the child, and they were concerned about the possibility that they were about to be framed. Like, they saw where this was going.
Yeah,
obviously.
of course.
So after that, Simon's father appealed to the Podesta specifically to search the Jewish family's house, saying that he'd been advised, in quotations, that they may have taken his child. Right. So obviously, the whole community isn't really digging these Jewish people because it's a very Christian area, obviously. So despite these searches, they did these huge searches of all the Jewish people's houses, and they did like really extensive, including this great hall that they were using as a synagogue, and this water cellar that was underneath the synagogue that they used for ritual bathing, and also supplied like a water channel that ran beneath the property that they owned. Mm-hmm. So they did this huge search, didn't find a thing. No trace of the child was ever found. So, according to the trial record, the Sunday following, a cook who was, so one of the Jewish guys, his last name was Samuel, and he worked for the Jewish community as a cook. So he went down to the cellar of the synagogue to fetch some water to prepare an evening meal, and they found, all of a sudden, where they'd searched before, they found the kid's body.
Ooh.
Just sitting in a body of water. So Samuel himself, the Jewish guy of the family, accompanied with two other family members of the Jewish community, and they went to the Podesta to report the kid. Like, hey, this kid turned up in our basement. This is really weird. So later in the evening, the Podesta and some of his men retrieve the body, and one guy that they mentioned, his name was Ulrich, and he was ordered to carry the kid back to hospital. And it was interesting that the narrative summary, based on the trial documents that this guy was looking into, completely omitted the fact that the Jewish people had themselves reported the body and then helped get the body out of there. Like, they were like really concerned, like, holy shit, someone's planted this body in our house.
Wow.
Of course.
So, following the report of the body's discovery, the entire Jewish community of this town, both men and women, were immediately arrested and forced under torture. So they were put in this horrible situation, and they were forced to confess to having murdered this kid, like under constraint of torture. And they told him that you did it for the blood rituals, didn't you? And as they were stretching him on the rack or whatever horrible things they were doing to him. So obviously, eventually,
it's like the Salem
yes,
witch trial.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Basically the same deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just
So-
it's just like a hate that got taken too far. It's just what I mean. Like it's
Yeah.
like
So
not all humans are going to get along all the time, but this was like this guy's like a vendetta. He's like, I have to get them out of this community. I won't let it happen.
Yeah.
And then like you have to think who killed that kid. It was probably somebody in the Christian community. I mean. This is,
Right.
I mean, this kind of
Right.
disinformation. This stuff happens all the time, and we're seeing it today with other kind of witch trials.
Well,
that are
yeah.
going on.
We'll get to that, yeah, for sure. So, old Bernie of Bernie de Feltre, he basically ran this whole... Like, he's been doing this, like, trying to persecute Jewish people for years during his career as a Christian pastor. So, anyway, when they examined the corpse, the city doctors, sure enough, determined that Simon had not died of natural causes and had been exsanguinated, so drained of blood. So again, they're trying to like fit this into this narrative of blood libel. And so the guy, the American historian who was looking into all this old material, his view after looking at it was interesting. He basically said it was all nonsense. So what he was diving into were these court records that were made by the Christian group of people, basically trying to put onto the Jewish community this murder was part of their like ritual, where it was nothing about the Jewish practice at all has anything to do with blood drinking or anything like that. In fact, it's completely opposite. They stay away from that stuff.
Yeah, they don't drink blood.
Yeah. So he says the narrative
when you take communion or where you drink the blood of Christ. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, I mean that's
Christians drink blood.
that's
Continue.
kind of a Christian idea. But anyway,
Continue. Yep.
let's fucking jump over that puddle. So the narrative imperative, the official story of the murder, represents nothing less than a Christian ethnography or a false idea of their beliefs of what the Jewish rites actually were. So they basically were saying, oh, this is what happened because the Jewish people believe this. But obviously it was all bullshit. So, judging by the falsities and omissions of these court documents that were just basically, made up to fit the narrative that they were trying to push, the Christians' court account of the events that took place appears to be just this complete stitch-up and a cover-up of what really happened. So we'll actually probably never know what happened, but it wasn't this blood libel nonsense that they were trying to push.
Right.
So basically what we have back in the day, 1400s, is a group of people accusing their perceived enemies as being a secret cabal. Interesting word, cabal. Where does that come from? Kabbalah, the Jewish community, of child murdering, blood drinking, these evil monsters. What does that sound like? So we don't want to get into this too far
That
because
sounds like something very popular right now.
this is some murky water right now.
It sounds
but
like
we
something
are-
a few of my friends on Facebook believe.
Yep,
And so we
we've
don't
all
want to get
seen
into
this.
that because, again, every idea comes with 10% of truth. And so we don't want to debate that. But it is very interesting. It's a very interesting connection.
Well, I'll
Right,
just say
and
this
it's a
quick.
continual thing. It's like this. It's it's a relevant, this